Welcome to episode 10 of the Extremely Non-Extreme podcast. I am the host, Quentin Wittrock. Today's episode features two guests. I have with me Randolph Meyer and Mitchell Rosen. Both are lawyers who attended law school at the University of Texas. Despite their Longhorn education, both Randy and Mitch have had their careers in Atlanta, Georgia, and they have spent a lot of time in courtrooms, so they are bulldogs in a couple of ways. And although I'm sure they're brave, I won't mention or do anything to mention the 1991 World Series to these guests, who are both big baseball fans and presumably Braves fans as well. Uh, Randy Meyer, I understand you are a man interested in history and politics. You write on Substack, and you have written that Democratic policies are more to your liking. That's what you've told me. And of importance for today's discussion, you believe those Democratic policies probably have the support of a healthy majority of Americans, but the Democrats somehow are poor politicians, to use your word. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think, Quentin, thank you for the question. There are two thoughts I have on that. One is that we allowed Republicans, going back to our very own Newt Gingrich, to define us. So what happened was we were no longer, the esteemed opposition, but we were treasonous and sleazy and libertines and atheists. And I think we thought nobody would believe that. But as we sometimes find in the courtroom, people believe all sorts of fantastical things. So I think we and when I say Republicans, I don't necessarily mean uh, normal Republicans, the people that we knew as Republicans when we were younger. But I think Gingrich was the toxic headwaters of all of that. And I think the second thing is that we don't communicate well. For the first time, we have more support from college graduates than Republicans. And that's great. I mean, to have brainy people be in our corner, but I don't think that what we do is we talk as if we're talking to each other. And in fact, I think that's maybe a big problem in that everybody is in their tribe now and only talking to each other and maybe even only living in certain neighborhoods or only living in certain states or parts of the state. But I don't think that we have a gift for earthy language. And I think of there's a fellow in Nebraska named Osborne, Dan Osborne, who was a blue collar guy. And he ran against the Republican senator in 24, and he managed to get within 3 or 4 points without any organization or history. He was just a very intelligent, thoughtful blue collar guy. And Kamala Harris lost by 21 points. So I think there is something for us to learn from that, that we should not be so dominated by consultants and pollsters, and that the one thing that Donald Trump has is authenticity, because I don't think he could remember what a pollster told him, and I don't think he'd care. So to me, we have the most psychopathic liar in history being seen as authentic,
Hmm.
and we're seen as inauthentic.
Mitch, how do
So
you see it? Do Democrats have the better positions on policy, but are just worse at politics and communication, as Randy notes?
The latter, I think, is definitely the case. Democrats tend, it seems like, tend to talk down to people. They don't listen very well, and they don't let the Republicans they let the Republicans take over the power of the speech and power of the performance. Democrats, I think, are adrift, don't really know what to do, how to do it. I think so much effort is given to anti-Trump, but no effort given to, well, okay, but what's the answer? What's the solution to that? Democrats seem to talk down to people, and that's where I think the problem lies more than anything else. How Trump, yes, the authenticity part, say what he wants, say what's on his mind. Yes, people respond to that, but policy-wise, I think the Democrats have better policies. They just don't. They don't get heard because Trump talks over them, or Trump tries to outduel them by just being himself. He never backs up. He never apologizes. He never is nuanced. He's straight ahead. And Democrats are all about nuance and not meaning to step on toes, and it's just not a good way to communicate in this age and day. It might have been in the past, but not now.
I have to tell you, though, that when I ran for Congress last year, I was running as a Republican, as Mitch knows, and I heard Republicans saying exactly the opposite. Republicans that I heard speak said the country is a center right country, meaning the United States is naturally inclined toward Republicans or conservatives on policy issues. Republicans clearly believe the vast majority is with them on policy. And we'll explore policy more here in a minute, but these same Republicans say that Democrats get their way in politics by controlling the communications, the levers of government and society, the media, and thus Americans tend to eliminate Democratic politicians even more so than Americans would if electing them based on the policies that are in our hearts. The folks who say this are referring to control over voting systems too, and that's an issue that's been beaten about quite a bit. The media, the courts, education at all levels, and especially the bureaucracy. Randy, do you have a reaction to that 180-degree
Well,
viewpoint?
Quentin, there's a lot to unpack there. But I think it does set a Democrat's teeth on edge when a Republican says we control this and that. I mean, you have the presidency, the Republicans not have the presidency, they have the Supreme Court, and they have the Congress, and yet they still feel beleaguered. And it's a great puzzle to us that
Yeah.
Republicans think that they're being a minority or they're beleaguered. As for the universities ought to be somewhat liberal because they're supposed to be places where you don't receive truths, you seek truths, and that is kind of a liberal value. Uh, and Lawyers, this country was founded by revolutionaries. Uh, those were pretty radical people and very influenced by the French Revolution, which came a little bit later. And so we revere the Constitution and the rule of law and limitations on government. Those are all kind of liberal ideas. And so that's as it should be. Not that conservative students or young lawyers, should be dismissed because, our values, and I would say this historically, our values are open inquiry. And, when I was a kid, everybody was conservative. And I said, what's a liberal? And they said, well, they question everything. They are open-minded. And I said, that's for me as a little kid. Admittedly, that may not be true anymore because I do think that we are more polarized than I've ever seen, including during the civil rights era, that this country is more polarized than I've ever seen. And I think there's a lot of cynicism in that. And finally, for the policies, I mean, people favor Roe v. Wade. They favor stricter gun control. They favor environmental issues. They believe in climate change. They don't want the border wall, even though, yes, they're in favor of closing the border and not having people just come over the border. They're for the expansion of Medicare. And they oppose the tariffs, and they oppose the president's tax bill because they think that it leans toward the rich. So I do think that we have the advantage on policy. It may be that now we are center right. The Democrats are center right.
No.
That may be true. But as far as polls go, if anybody believes it, they favor Democratic policies. We just can't get through. Now, Trump rolled over everybody, Republican and Democrat. So he has a kind of evil witchcraft side to him. No Republican could stand up to him too. And so there's that to contend with. Will Trumpism go on after Trump? I doubt it.
What's your take on that, Mitch?
First of all, no Republican has stood up to Trump. That doesn't mean it won't happen. But the Democrats keep thinking, oh, it's got to happen. Some moderate Republicans, more than one, a lot, a bunch, they're going to have to see that there's not the way to go. But it still hasn't happened. We keep thinking every week, every month, it's going to happen. The voices are going to rise up within the Republican Party and realize it's not the way to go. Getting to your other point about when you were running for Congress and the folks you were with were thinking that, well, the country really is center right. And so I think it's who you hang out with. Randy probably would back me on this, but I think the country's center left. And the policies that Randy just talked about are center left policies. Yet that's not the law of the land. So why is that? I think it's who your group is, and your group is center right, our group is center left. So we think we're right, or we've got the majority of the electorate, and you think the opposite. So I think it's where you come from, who you hang with.
Well, and part of it is I'm in Minnesota, and Republicans have not won a statewide office here since 2006.
Wow.
U.S. Senate, governor, any of the constitutional offices, we've lost them all. I live here in the Twin Cities, where all 4 representatives in Congress are Democrats. The 4 in outstate Minnesota are Republicans. So it is in part perhaps reflective of the frustration here in my specific location. We just had a special election a month ago or earlier this month for the Minnesota House seat that was vacated by the assassination of our representative Melissa Hortman. And so it's an open seat, a Democrat against a Republican. Neither one has been in the legislature before, so they're both basically newbies. And the Democrat won 60-39, which is, I believe, the same margin that Melissa Hortman had won after 10 consecutive elections as the incumbent. So there is a strong belief that here where I live, it's moving to the left. And the left has all the advantages. One politician, we've talked about him already, who seems to have a pretty good way of getting his way, or at least claiming that he got his way. He's big on declaring victory, is Donald Trump, and he has unique tactics. Democrats fear and loathe his methods of governance, and it's already been referred to this morning. How can Democrats most effectively counter the Trumpian approach? I'm talking about 2026. Other than swearing more and using earthier language, which is what Tim Walz tried to do, how can Democrats counter Trump without being just like Trump?
That's a great question.
I was going to say that's a really good question, Quentin.
It vexes us. It vexes us. And all I can say is it's a little bit like in litigation, if you have a sociopath who is your opponent, they have certain advantages because they will do things that you won't do. And that does, yeah, give them an advantage. And so I think it just takes not to become like them, but to have patience and work harder. You just have to be patient and work harder. And I would say this, guys like the president always fall. And I'll admit he's lasted longer than I ever thought. And they do a lot of damage before they fall. But historically, you could see guys like that always fall. And I think that will happen, that his credibility will sweep away before the end of his term. That's my hope. But as I said earlier, he destroyed all the Republicans too. The only person who ever whipped his ass was Joe Biden, and that's why he hates him. He can't stand the idea that he ever lost. That's why he hates Biden, because he kicked his ass. But he was the only one who's ever able to do it.
Mitch, how do the Democrats counter the Trumpian tactics without being like him?
We think that so long as we are civil and decent and good people, that people will come to us. But that's proven not to be the case, which is not answering your question. But I think that's what we think is going to happen. Is a bully. The way to deal with a bully is you punch a bully. But
as Michelle Obama put it, when they go low, we go high.
Yeah, well, and that proves that's lovely, and it's a great gut feeling that you do that you're the better person, but the better person is losing. So, but Democrats are not hardwired like Trumpian Republicans are hardwired to abuse the other side. And so I don't know how you undo that problem. I think Democrats just sort of keep waiting for folks to get sensitive or get to realize that Trumpian way is not good for America, where they get so offended by something he said that hits them at their core that they reject him. But it hadn't happened, and I don't know why, and I don't know how to fix it. Not that anybody's other than you has asked me.
An optimistic note here.
Yeah, please, we need one.
We draw a distinction between Republicans and MAGA. Democrats, liberals draw a distinction between MAGA and Republicans. And we do not believe that it would be good not to have a Republican Party, not to obliterate the Republican Party so it doesn't exist anymore. It's not even great to have it like it was during the New Deal, where you'd have 80 senators, 75% in the House. We don't believe that. We believe that there should be a party oriented more toward capital than labor, basically, which or people who are not wealthy. We think that should be both parties. That goes back to Madison. It was hard to explain Madison because basically his idea was the best government's an inefficient government, a government where you have people where power is in all sorts of different pockets. But Democrats, particularly Democratic lawyers, believe that. And so the optimistic thing is, it's true that in Congress, it's stunning to us how weak the Republicans are, how they have just let the president wipe out 100 years of Republican orthodoxy and done nothing. But I guess what brought me here was that essay I wrote about Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah. And I thought that was a remarkable speech he gave after the assassination, the call to come together and to stop the violence and to stop the violent language and to stop the hatred of both sides. And I think it's a speech that will be remembered for a long time. And we admire that. And our governor here in Georgia, he showed backbone when Trump got unhappy with him when he wouldn't just deliver the state to Trump in 20. Trump ran a former U.S. senator against him, and Governor Kemp won by 50 points. 50 points. It's astonishing. But I would say that Governor Kemp has a solid following of moderate Democrats in this state. Would we vote for him against a good Democrat? No. But would we get up early in the morning and knock on doors or send money to beat him? Probably not, because the state will survive and can prosper. At least we did prosper under Governor Kemp. So these never Trumpers, these folks that gave up their career, Kinzinger, Cheney, Nicole Wallace, those people we admire. And I think there is a basis for healthy discord. Disagree better, said Governor Cox, and that's what we want.
Yeah, well, I'm full of personal experience about how it is to be a Republican when you're not a pro-Trump Republican.
Right.
As I explained it when I was running for office, I can't go around this district with a Wittrock flag in one hand, waving that, and a Trump flag in the other, and have any hope of getting elected in the general election. But I also didn't have any hope of getting nominated in the primary without the Trump flag in my one hand. So that's the conundrum Republicans find themselves in. Mitch, do you have any other ideas for how traditional Republicans, non-MAGA Republicans, can get back on top, or just have to wait for the fall of Trump?
Well, Quentin, forgive me for doing this, but I'm going to turn that back on you. How would you answer that question, being you're the only Republican here? I mean, you see these folks, you hang out with these folks. How do you un-Trump the party?
Well, I think that we have to see Trump dragging down the party and reducing its chances of winning elections. And then, in our own self interest, we will abandon Trump. But I have been saying this for many years, and many years, ever since the Trump phenomenon first came upon us. And I've been wrong as far as the Republican Party abandoning Trump. He's kind of like in baseball. We had a catcher by the name of A.J. Pierzynski, and everybody hated A.J. Pierzynski except Twins fans because he was our jerk. And there have been basketball players along the same lines that they're clearly a jerk and everybody hates him except the team they're on. That's the way Trump is, in my opinion, because he's our guy and we are using him to get our way. I'm not including myself in that situation.
Yeah,
But is there any hope?
Brzezinski,
Does either of you see any hope for
larger
bipartisanship, compromise, or even courtesy and decency in politics today?
I mean, yes, that's kind of what I was getting at there is there are numerous Republicans that we respect and maybe even to some degree admire. That's the foundation of healthy disagreement, healthy discourse. I wish we saw more. Look at this fellow Langford from Oklahoma. He did a lot of work to put together a border bill, and that was a tremendous amount of work to do that, where there would be enough of votes with the filibuster to pass it. And then Trump killed it because he wanted the issue. Now, to a Democrat, that's crazy. That's like, how does he still have support when he undercuts a conservative Republican like James Lankford of Oklahoma, and then come out and say, well, I want this policy, a policy just killed. And so I think it would help, particularly in Congress, if more people would stand up. I mean, there's worse things than losing an election. And most of those people have gone on to maybe do even better than they would have done if they were in Congress. Kinzinger immediately comes to mind. Um, they're just worse things. And so when we look at the Republicans in our state, which is kind of astonishing to us, they seemed admirable in 2020. I mean, Duncan, Sterling, Raffensperger, they just said, no, we're not going to give you this state. And so that causes moderates to liberals say, okay, you got to give them credit. You got to give them props. So I think one thing would help is if more Republicans took the chance to push back on Trump. Why didn't Langford push back harder? You saw him shaking his head a little bit in the State of the Union address, but that was it. And he votes with him every time. How about pushing back occasionally? And then people will say, hey, the emperor has no clothes.
Well, the way I put it when I was running and after I lost is I'd much rather have my integrity than a seat in Congress. But
Yeah.
I'm sure that that is not the universal belief. I think the people in Congress would rather have the seat in Congress than their integrity. So, one of my goals with the Extremely Non Extreme podcast is to help listeners realize that the vast majority of the country actually is in agreement or close to agreement about most policy matters. And I believe that nearly everyone in America shares a common sense, and we gravitate toward the same common sense policies if you strip away which parties and politicians are advancing those policies. And we share common goals as Americans. And if anything, we only disagree on the best ways to reach those policy objectives. Mitch, are you with me on that?
No.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, I mean, I'm with you that that would be ideal. That would be a good thing that we could all come together. But I don't see the Republicans doing that. They just want to fight. They want to take their stance. They want to deny anything that the Democrats want. I don't know what their quote their problem is, because you're right. There's a lot of stuff that's in common, but as far as legislation is concerned and who they elect and the power of Trump, no, they're not coming halfway, or even they're not coming close. They're not coming at all toward the Democrats in that sense, and they're just putting up Republicans that are just yes men and yes women to Trump. The other thing is too, just getting back to Georgia, we have probably 50-50 or 51-49 Republican or 52-48 Republican. But when you look at the legislature and you look at who holds the offices within the state and who gets to gerrymander and redistrict, it's all Republicans. But I mean, it's very close down the line as far as the electorate is concerned. So how does that make sense? And so long as that keeps happening, the Democrats keep getting pushed down because of the Republicans taking control. They're going to keep control, even though we do have, as Randy points out, pretty moderate Republicans by and large heading up the Republican Party. But we still can't make much headway or get anybody elected other than in the Senate, which is sort of bizarre that we've got these senators that are Democrats and almost everything else in the state is Republican. I can't explain it. Randy, can you?
Um, well, let me say this: those issues that I talked about earlier, where that are center left issues, where uh, by the polls the public is with us. In most of those, Republicans favor them as well, not by as much, but and sometimes it's 50-50, but Republicans tend to favor those issues too. And so that is a foundation. But once again, I come back to MAGA. MAGA is corrupt, but it is also like shock troops. They they are so committed to the personality of the president rather than policy. And if you think about policy, what are Trump's policies? Sort of a vague belief in tariffs, which basically he imposes at a whim, or who he likes, or he's going to put 50% on Brazil because they have convicted the former president, who's of Brazil, is a friend of his. Or you got Musk on stage with a chainsaw. If you ask most people, could you cut some waste out of government? Could you do it? Yes, but it should be thoughtful. It should be, and
It's
so
a show. It's a show,
yeah,
Randy.
yeah,
He's the producer of a show, and the show is about him. He's the star, and he is, uh, making sure that he's in every scene. He's in the meeting today of all the military
right,
generals.
right,
He's got to be the lead actor in every scene, and so it's about him. That's his policy.
right.
And
But he's shock troops. He's got people so committed to him, and the rest of us have lives. Yes, we like politics. Yes, we like history. Yes, we're committed, but not like that. And so
yeah.
I think that's the big problem. The three of us, I feel like, on most issues, we could sit down and work things out.
Well, let's throw a couple out. And Randy, you're a mediator. You've mediated a ton of disputes, over 1,000 disputes you've mediated, I believe. And don't you think we can find some common ground on some things? And you just said so. So let's throw one out. Immigration. Is this
Right.
let's start with the basics. Is it true that a nation must control its borders? And that includes the United States.
Absolutely. And I don't know of any Democrat that would quarrel with that, even though we're painted as people that just want open borders. This Senator Tuberville of Alabama said, not only are we soft on crime, we favor crime as some kind of reparation or something. We favor it. How do you have a conversation with somebody like that?
Yeah. Mitch, isn't that right? It's just a perception, not a reality, that Democrats don't want to control the border and just want to let everybody in, criminal or not.
I don't think most Democrats want the open borders, and I don't think any Republicans want open borders. It's a question of controlling is the key word. I think you've got to make sure who's coming in is somebody you want coming in and keep out the people you don't want in. But you know what? When I have this conversation with folks that are hard on the right and say, you know what, I don't mean to demean things, but who's going to cut the grass if you don't let people in? Who's going to wash the dishes in the restaurant you like to go to if you do that? And you can go on and go on, go on and go on. But then also, you look at your own history, your own life. Most of us are children of immigrants. And I'm glad I'm in this country. I'm glad that my ancestors came here and that America was able to take them and willing to take them in. So I think people are pro immigration. They're just pro thoughtful immigration or controlled, if that's the word one wants to use, immigration, not unfettered immigration and not no immigration, but some hybrid in between. The problem we have, the system we have right now, is last time I looked, it takes 6 years for somebody to get into this country legally. And that's absurd. Then what? Nobody's going to do that. Everybody's just going to try and cross the border, as would I.
Well, the way I think Donald Trump uses the immigration issue and Republicans use the immigration issue is this is Donald Trump's superpower. He says things that are way out there that are very controversial, Democrats, as you are prone to do, oppose whatever Trump says. And then he says that by opposing his position, you don't agree with the general proposition. So, immigration. Trump says we're going to deport 20 million people because they're all criminals and rapists. And so then you point out the flaws in that. And then he says, well, see, Democrats are supporting illegal immigrants. And so isn't there a way out of that catch 22 that he puts you in by setting these traps on issues like immigration? I often wonder, why do the Democrats continually take that bait and not just respond by saying, well, I don't agree with everything the president says, but I agree we must control our borders. Why don't you state the positive of we must control our borders rather than opposing everything Trump does in the immigration area?
Well, that's an excellent question. And the only thing I could say to that is we're not used to this kind of thing. Most politicians in our memory may disagree with us, but they, try to align with truth or some reality. And the other thing is Democrats are very sensitive to injustice. I mean, and so that gets us going. So yes, he baits us, and yes, we overreact, but it's difficult not to do that and be a Democrat when you go from something like we favor open borders and no regulation simply because we don't want, the fellow who has 3 Marines as children to be dragged out of his job and taken to Uganda or El Salvador. It's so extreme that we almost can't help react to that. And he baits us. But is it up to us? I mean, as
Yeah.
Mitch said earlier, why don't more Republicans who are good people take integrity over gain? Ultimately, integrity, we believe that. Ultimately, integrity will win out. A lot of damage happens first, but integrity ultimately wins out. If that concept is gone, then the Democrats are lost in the wilderness.
Following up on what you said, Randy, I think part of the difference is Democrats approach problems with a level of compassion that MAGA has zero level of compassion for. And I think that's why most people are Democrat. Why I'm a Democrat and why you're a Democrat. It's because you got to treat your fellow man with some kindness and some compassion. That doesn't mean you let everybody in across the borders. That doesn't mean you let crime be crime rampantly or do whatever you want. That's not what it is. But MAGA, Trump, I see no compassion except where it really benefits him politically. I don't think that comes from his heart. I think that comes from his strategic head whenever he does show compassion, and he doesn't do it much.
No, he hates his enemies, as he publicly stated in front of
I hate
many,
you.
many millions of people.
What president's ever done that? I hate you. This is a party that goes back to Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. Well,
It's a
and
complete corruption.
it's as antithetical to the Christian faith as anything could possibly be, because the
Yes.
direct words of Jesus Christ said, it is often said that one should love your friends and hate your enemies, but I am here to tell you, no, you should love your enemies. That's the direct words of Jesus Christ. So at a religious service, a funeral for Charlie Kirk, for Trump to say that right after Charlie Kirk's wife had said a positive tone is just, I don't see. That's the one that mind boggles me the most, is how Christian Republicans not only stick with Trump, but swear by him and say he's God ordained. I don't understand that at all as a Christian. But anyway, Mitchell,
No,
were you
you're
going to say
absolutely
something?
right. I mean, we just shake our heads. What do you get, 75 to 80% of white evangelicals? I mean, everything he does is antithetical to their professed beliefs. Why do they stick with him? And Democrats are completely baffled by that. We don't understand it. And of course, the thought starts to creep in. They're hypocrites.
Yeah, and I think that I have a theory on that, that people who love Trump, and there are people who love Trump because he hates the same people they hate. And he says it out loud. And he's their spokesman, or he is in effect their middle finger to the people that they hate. And by uh, electing him, that's their way of flipping the bird to the people they despise. But
I think that's absolutely right. And that also puzzles us. I mean, we go to their barbecue joints, we listen to Hank Williams. we don't we don't look down on these people, but they really do seem to hate us. And I don't, the only thing I can figure is they loved 1957. I mean, everything was white then. Uh, and then Obama comes along and it's like a horrible thing. To Democrats, the melting pot is really the strength of America, along with the right to trial by jury, the Constitution, blues, jazz. I mean, but the fact this is an experiment. No country's ever tried to put this many different religions and people and countries together and live in peace. And Democrats see that is a great thing to try and do that. And I think a lot of the MAGA don't think it's a great thing at all. They want it to be where, white people had everything.
well, maybe so. We shall see. I think that the saying, "the bigger they are, the harder they fall," might come into play. But I've been expecting that now for 10 or 12 years. Let me
We're
throw
all
out one other issue, and then we'll wrap up for today's episode. And this has to do with business. Republican Party used to be the party of business, and both Main Street, small business, and big business, Wall Street. Uh, and one of the Republican talking points always has been regulation hurts growth. Growth is good for everyone. So reduced regulation allows for business growth, which is helpful to America. Uh, is that not true? As a policy matter, uh, both Republicans and Democrats see the truth to that statement. Mitchell, start with you.
Um, yes, but it's also getting out of hand. I think environmentally, most importantly, we need to control some of the environmental pollution and environmental harm that's going on. And unfettered regulation is going to get worse. I mean, as I think Randy said, yeah, Republicans and Democrats are concerned about climate change. Well, that's just one area where unfettered regulation is causing a problem and will continue to cause a problem. So I think some regulation is important, intelligent regulation, but I, you're also going to get some businesses, some growth out of regulation, or businesses that do get regulated, or parts of businesses that get regulated. So I don't really subscribe to unregulated, no regulation is good for business.
Well, it's another situation where Trump lays a trap. He says that climate change is a scam, and he says he's outrageous. Drill, baby, drill. Just whatever he can that is a catchy phrase, and then the Democrats go nuts. And then Trump says, well, these are the Democrats are the people that they want to come in and take away your washing machine, and they want to make you have a electric car, and they want to have all these government mandates, which are scams anyway. These are all just waste, fraud, and abuse to line the pockets of wealthy wind generation farmers or whatever. And so, however you oppose him, he throws it back in your face effectively. What so back to the regulation. What's your take on that, Randy? How can Democrats handle that issue?
Well, I think we'd concede that there is stupid regulation where somebody tells you can't do it just because. And I don't know of any Democrat that favors that. But Quentin, if we don't have, he's also denigrating the courts. He's trying to diminish the courts as well. If
Yeah.
we don't have law and we don't have intelligent regulation, the criminals rise to the top. They have all the advantages, and so laissez-faire capitalism has never worked. Teddy Roosevelt saw that the government needs to be a bulwark against the power of the monopolies against the individual. So I would draw a distinction between stupid regulation, which is just because I got power and you got to jump, and intelligent regulation, which is essential to a well-run country. Same with law, same with the courts. We need that.
Yep. Very well. Well, I think we should wrap up today's episode. You mentioned the courts, Randy, and I have a podcast scheduled for late this in October with a former judge, and we will have a panel to discuss the denigration of the courts and the role of the courts and lawyers in our politics these days. We've seen more lawfare, as Republicans like to call it, except for when they do it. And we have quite a role for lawyers. You are both lawyers, and your insights and intellect has been very helpful in the discussion today. So thank you, Randy. Good to meet you. And Mitch, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show today. And we'll look forward to having everybody back down the road. I think we'll do this again sometime.
Hope
So,
so. I completely enjoyed it. And thank you, Quentin.
Thank you, Quentin.
all
Thank you,
right.
Randy.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.